usage of mobile banking. And then, of course, the usage of net banking was also positively related to the monthly income. So one economic factor was significantly related. Now coming to the behavioral factors, as we just saw that respondents, even though they're having their bank accounts, most of their bank accounts are being operated by someone else from their family. So this is what we call as a voluntarily financial exclusion. That is voluntary, I have withdrawn from that formal institution. So what were the reasons? And it is, as I just told you, this is where our behavioral economics come into the picture, wherein we are talking about that people may not be so rational all the times. It is the other things which what go in our mind which help, which make us take decisions which may not be rational from economic point of view, but it's okay from their side. So this is a focus group discussion we did. I've just made a word cloud of the keywords which they gave. I'll just go to the next table also. So the bigger keywords in the word cloud shows the higher frequency. So they are higher frequency words. So for example, I trust male member of the family to do these transactions. So that has come up the most. So therefore it's carrying a greater, the size of the word is greater, bigger. Then similarly cash transaction, they said, okay, we have a bank account, but हमको cash में रखना better लगता है. So even if they are losing on the rate of interest is okay, but they would like to keep money in cash. Then they said it's a privacy. Privacy is very important for women because sometimes they feel कि बैंक में पैसे रहे तो घर वालों को दिखते हैं. So they prefer keeping money at home. So that was another factor which led to, that's again a behavioral factor. Maybe they are being irrational, but that's true. So we've seen in demonetization how many housewives came up with so much funds. So that was one aspect. So this is a word cloud. Coming to, as I told you, coming to the aspect of the most of the audience here, psychology. I try to understand whether there is a cognitive bias, as you call, even though I'm not a student of psychology. But I tried to bother Hina ma'am for this, and I took some readings from her and asked her that is it because I went through a book of slow thinking, Richard, slow thinking, fast thinking, thinking fast. I'm thinking fast and slow. So there I came across this word, cognitive bias. So I tried to understand that what is the causes and what is the effect. So the reasons are the causes and the effect is the bias that has happened. For example, the first is the status quo bias. जैसा है वैसे ही चलेगा, हमको ऐसा ही ठीक लगता है. We don't want to adopt banking. We don't want to adopt mobile banking. That is one reason. Cash transactions are better. They are safer. तो हमको जैसा है वैसा ही. So that's a status quo bias. Then functional fixedness. I always prefer cash transactions. जैसे हमारा word cloud में भी दिखा था कि always prefer having cash than keeping money in the bank. I never tried and I don't want to try mobile money banking. This is the reason we got from the people. Then there was also misinformation effect which is leading to this bias. For example, they said banks charge very high rate of interest. Definitely the local money lender charges a higher rate of interest compared to the bank. So that was a misinformation effect. Then they said that transactions in ATMs and mobile banking can only be done in English. That's not the case. We have it in all the languages. Then they said that we have a low income, so we cannot take a loan. So all these are misinformation effect, which is leading them to take an irrational decision. Then there was a bandwagon effect also. None of my friends uses it. So why should I use? And my family thinks कि तुम तो गलती करोगी इसमें. That was another thing. Then she said that banks तो जब जरूरत पड़ती है तो मदद नहीं करती. तो मेरी दोस्त गई थी, मेरे रिलेटिव गए थे, वो उनको जब पैसा चाहिए था तो लोन नहीं मिला. तो हम नहीं जाएंगे बैंक में, हम प्रेफर करेंगे कि भाई पैसा घर में रख के या जरूरत पड़ेगी तो हम किसी से अपने फैमिली से मिल सकेंगे. And then they said that we also found our last banking transaction very difficult, so we don't want this. And one more reason, screen में थोड़ा सा ये हो गया, देखो they said that we have a feature phone, very common in the rural areas. They don't have the smartphone, so that feature phone में ये सब नहीं होता है. So that was again a misinformation effect because UPI transactions can be done in a feature phone also. So this is what I call as biases in action. which is leading them to have irrational decisions. So if I want to just conclude, what I would like to say is that what we need more in these cases is what we call as nudges. You need to nudge people to do this. For example, Anganwadi workers, Asha workers, if they can be brand ambassadors for teaching these women how to do these online transactions or digital banking, they will rely more on them as compared to a bank manager coming and telling. Because so many times, they are afraid to step in the bank also because they feel सब पढ़े लिखे लोग रहेंगे और हमारे से stupid से question को वो answer नहीं करेंगे. So they don't want to step in the bank. So if we can get hold of people with whom they tag on to, so that would be a better way to change their behavioral aspect of banking transaction. So it is not the financial literacy campaigns which is needed, but I think it is more of nudging which is needed. So that is all. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amar. That was a wonderful presentation. Next, may I invite Professor Rakesh
हमारे साथ सैंपल से ही है ना सैंपल because if you see because of Jandan ना most of the women जो working women रहते DBT आती थी ना तो DBT तो बैंक अकाउंट में आती है तो DBT की उनको अकाउंट खोले पड़े वो जो उज्ज्वला योजना में जो DBT आती है वो अकाउंट में आती है.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any comments or questions? If there are none, then we'll complete the symposium here. She is the only speaker for the symposium today. And we will have to now move on to the invited lectures. Invited lectures in psychology. We have about nine speakers for the invited lecture today. I'm going to call out the names so that we know the sequence in which you will be invited to make your presentation. First, we have Shrestha Yadav and Anil Kumar Yadav presenting on personal and organizational codex. I'm reading the title because I think Dr. Anil Kumar Yadav is presenting two papers. Next is Tarun Mishra. Third is Sujit Pratap. Is he here?
He's coming.
Okay. Then we have Richa Singh is not here.
No.
Tushar Singh, not here. Anurag Upadhyay. Then we have Gaurav Kumar Rai. And then Anil Kumar Yadav again. Then Shakila Azam, not here. Krishna Kumar. He was here, maybe. Vikash Kumar.
Yes.
And Aditi Boratkar. Aditi
She'll be coming.
She'll be.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are asked to close the session by 4:30 because there is a Nobel laureate presentation for which all of us are invited. So we'll request the participants to plan their talk for 15 minutes and 15 minutes and then discussion. Maybe 5 minutes for discussion.
5 मिनट ज़्यादा हो जाएगा मैडम 2 मिनट का रखिए तो खत्म नहीं हो पाएगा.
Okay. 2 hours. 2:30.
10 plus 2 का रखिए
3:30,
तो होगा.
4:30, 2 hours. And we have about 10 people, 9 people. Even 9 of them are not here. So 10 minutes and 5 minutes. 15 minutes we try to. I think that would be good. May I now invite Shrestha Yadav and Anil Kumar? Okay. Tarun Mishra? Yes, please.
and I'll be delivering this lecture on the topic a cost benefit study on the Flickr cube using visual task performance. So starting with this, the content which I am going to deliver is here. And here I would like to have a note that there was an ethical declaration which has been passed by the university to conduct this study because we are including human participants. So with the discord of the late Brother Parsuram, that of all the merit tasks which we do in everyday life, we need to have an attention as crucial role. Because without attention, none other than like working memory, thinking, problem solving, decision making, leadership, etc., any other higher cognitive task cannot be performed. So with this goal, I took attention as my subject of study. So it is a foundation of a multiple cognitive system, basically also known as in the typology sustained attention or a vigilance task performance. Now why vigilance? Because it has to be taken very prolonged period of a time where attention has to be taken as a concentration of a mental resources for a particular task to be find out in terms of detection of a target on a non-target. And when this type of task has to be performed for a longer period of a time, like we are sitting here and trying to pinpoint facts from different lectures for a longer period of time, it's quite very difficult. When the time passes, this particular performance gets decreased. That is known as decrement function of vigilance performance. And this particular decrement has been traced out with the networking attention issues, which has been described in 3 terms, that is orienting, alerting, and execution. I will be taking the part 1 orienting in this particularly, and alerting and executing part can be traced in any other task too. So for that I use a Flickr cube. Now what is a Flickr cube? If we take as a quantum definition the stimulus which is followed by a stimulus again, which can be a target or a non-target. Now that cube has to be an informative, like look at the right side, look at the left side, look upward or look downward. Or by just hand movement I can show you the direction and you have to orient your whatever the sensory or information or organs are you are capable with, right? So whenever we point out the cube, we need a CGOA. In the last presentation also this term came up. So what is this particular term? It is a cube target onset asynchrony. When there is 2 stimulus, there is a time gap interval between it. And when this interval is varied, this is known as cue target onset asynchrony because there is an onset of a stimulus with the asynchronous temporal resolution. So this is a literature, we have to skip it out. But yes, I will come to the rationale. During sustained attention, we need to focus not only on our sensory but also the cognitive resources like we are doing it right now towards one specific event or object which is taxing, ultimately leading to the decrement in the vigilance performance, which gets worsened when the loads get increased all the time. Like if we bombard all the information in one slide, it is really difficult to grasp all the information out of it. That's why we segregate in different slides. Sometimes it's a visual presentation, sometimes it can be an auditory presentation. But for now, we are taking a visual representation with the objective that we have to set the Flickr cube on the visual task performance and the cost benefit analysis of a cube performance, which is very essential when we use a cube. Because we need to find that whatever we additionally provide any information, it has a cost and it has also a benefit. So we have to find out how much in cost and benefit is given to the cube for getting the optimum performance. So here are the hypotheses. Participant performance would be better for 400 milliseconds CGOA as compared to 100 and 700. Participant performance under valid cube would be better than invalid in the neutral conditions. Benefit of a cube validity would be greater in low task condition than the high task condition. So very commonly people can ask, low task में तो हमेशा performance अच्छी होती है, why to take low task low? So whenever we have to take a comparative sample, we need a baseline performance. For that we are taking a low task load, but the optimum study or the thrust of the study is in the high task load condition where the queue is impacting its performance. So the participants here, 90 male student with the age range of 18 to 28 years. All the participants had normal to the corrected to normal vision with the accuracy of 75% in the performance during the practice session that were included for the main session. Participants who had a history of any kind of medical condition related to our visual task were excluded. So here is the vigilant task. The target and the non-target are the slide, the sample slide for you. And here is the task, a demonstration of a task. If you can find out the B letter in this, that will be a vigilant task for you. So flow chart of this start from the fixation here and end to the response date, and again is start with the fixation. So it is a loop for 40 minutes. So my design was a 2 by 3 by 3 and by 4 with a mixed factorial design, repeated mission on last two factors, that is Q and the time period. Here is the procedure where ethical consideration was taken on the informed consent. If a person is not able to do the task, he or she can give an informed consent that she cannot perform and we have to exclude it from the study. And if he or she agrees, we continue with the different parts of the schedule. So the results now, you see the correct detection was taken 100 billion centigrade CPU weight, but the optimum performance was taken in the 400 CPU weight, which means that if a Q is given for 400 millisecond differences, the performance was optimum for the correct detection. Whereas if the temporal resolution was decreased to the 100 millisecond, the hit rate marginally decreased. But if you see the difference, if the temporal intervals increased to the 700 millisecond as compared to 400 millisecond, the correct detection again decreased drastically, which was significantly different. Coming on the second performance measure, that is false alarm, where we tried to find out the target but we didn't and we hit it and we tried to set it in the detection. So the very low detection rate was found in the 400 millisecond as compared to 700 millisecond or 100 millisecond interval. Here is the reaction time. In the 400 millisecond, participant took very less time to detect the target when it was queued with invalid performance or invalid interpretation. Now here is the combined cost benefit analysis. So the main point here is to see this particular line of graph, that is high task load with a 400 millisecond condition, where we increased the task load at to the top of notch level, but the Q was given only on the 400 millisecond, and you see the performance was optimally refounded. Rather than in any of the graph line you see like high task load in 700 or high task load in 100 millisecond, the performance was not so much optimized. Here is a separate cost benefit analysis where we found the benefit of a reaction time for the at least 50 millisecond difference in the 400 milliseconds as compared to 170 milliseconds, which is significantly different. Again, the benefit in terms of low task load was found very much higher, but we have to see according to the block, that is the first 10 minutes block, second, third, and the last 48 minute block, that increment is holding. Whereas the phenomenon of a sustained attention increment shown in the first graph was continuously decrement performance across the time period. Here is the perceptual sensitivity you will find out. And the response criteria, how we stringent found out the criteria to detect the target was optimum again in the 100 milliseconds. So conclusion or the thrust of my study, that 400 millisecond CQA or the temporal interval between the Q and the target stimulus was observed best target detection interval with the maximum performance when we use the flicker Q rather than any static Q. Error of commission of a participant were recorded higher in the 700 millisecond CQA, with the least were found in the 400 millisecond. The combined cost benefit analysis explained that participant performance was benefited maximum at 400 millisecond CQA, with the separate cost benefit analysis revealed that participant benefited under 400 as well as 700, but as compared to the 100 millisecond, the optimum performance was for 400 and 700 millisecond CPU. The least perceptual sensitivity decrement was found under 400 millisecond again. So high task load weakened the perceptual sensitivity, but the queued performance of 400 millisecond increased this particular performance when was compared to other any task load conditions. So there are some future direction which can be included if we have to expand the study. And I here take an opportunity to acknowledge all my participant families and the lab members who helped me, and the funding agency who throughout my study helped me in different type of financial challenges. Thank you. Sure.
Yes, please.
Dr. Mishra, you have presented a very nice paper,
Yes, sir.
but my hunch is
Yeah.
that if intra-RT is also taken into consideration,
Yes, sir.
intra-RT,
Yes, sir.
whether it is sensorial, visual or natural.
Naturally.
So you you measure RT natural.
Yes, it is a natural with the software of ePrime. We have a simulation software, sir. The participant had to click the space bar and the RT will be recorded naturally with the presentation and the detection.
My hunch is
Yeah.
that if you give sensorial instructions
Sensorial interest.
or muscular instructions,
Okay, sir. Transdermal.
artery muscular will be lowest.
Okay, sir. So that will be transdermal.
So you can verify it, because I don't have that lab, but you can verify it whether there are intra-RT differences also.
Sir, actually, what happens when we take a transdermal recipe, it is more of an indicator of an orienting and alerting, not an executive part. For an executive part, a person has to do a motor function by clicking a space bar on his or a designated button. Until and unless that is performed, the particular measure will be recorded as an orienting or an alerting, but not in an executive term. That is a criticism given in the paper. For that, we took this particular software.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for the presentation. Now, we'll move to the next presenter. Aditi.
A very good afternoon.
Do you have a case?
Okay, a very good afternoon to all present here. My name is Aditi and I am so grateful for this opportunity to be presenting a short piece on positive memory enhancement training for depression to the house today. Well, just to give a background, I am trained as a clinical psychologist. I have completed my MPhil and while I was studying there, we saw that in Raipur, in a psychiatric hospital, when patients came for treatment of depression, first of all, there was a lot of stigma. So for example, we understand depression to be a persistent state of sadness accompanied with a lot of inability to experience pleasure and lack of energy to complete even tasks of daily living. When this happens, there is a hindrance to treatment adherence, especially where we have not enough infrastructure and at times accessibility in the rural areas for mental health care, especially psychosocial interventions are not easily accepted and made accessible. So we know that CBT has been one of the evidence-based practices for working through depression. For treatment, resistant and recurrent depression, we have electroconvulsive shock therapy and other non-invasive stimulation techniques also. But the most impeding challenge was the disability from lack of energy and inability to experience pleasure that was coming up for our patients. There's a lot of research available on the mood and memory bias. When we're talking about that, in depression it has been seen that it is difficult for patients to disengage from negative material in the working short-term memory, which creates a sort of rigidity in emotion regulation, such that there is rumination and a difficulty in maybe using strategies like cognitive reappraisal. Because of this, there's also difficulty in attending
to positive stimuli around, which in turn leads to a sustained depressive mood. Further, there were researches available indicating that people suffering from depression not only find it difficult to engage with positive events and material related to that when given cues for autobiographical memory, but that their memories of positive events are over-generalized. This has been established as the mood congruent memory bias for depression. However, a very interesting treatment strategy was explored by Dr. Kimberly Ardetta Hall and her team in the USA, which focused on enhancing autobiographical and experiential memory experience of depressed patients to see if it would facilitate a repair of their sad mood. And the researchers came up with a module with a practice phase, a training phase which was administered in a single session, and the participants were rated on their valence, that is how much they liked recalling a particular memory, specificity, with how much specific detail they were able to recall a memory, and they were also rated on their ability to repair their sad mood, which was checked on a Likert scale, before and after recall. I'm going to run you through the procedure now. So, to begin with, the individuals were asked to recall an emotionally arousing memory that was either positive or negative, or it was some memory that evoked a sense of loss of happiness for them. After this happened, a short exercise was performed. I want to invite you all to volunteer with me and just bear with me for 2 minutes. Close your eyes. Try to remember the last time you saw a lemon, a piece of lemon. Yeah? Try to visualize it. As you do, I want you to recall specific details of that lemon. How big was it? How small was it? If I were to ask you the color, would you describe it as more green, yellow, or with spots? When you touch it, would it be cool, room temperature? And would it be hard to touch, or would there be some smoothness on its surface? This exercise was introduced by the researchers to participants to bring in the concept of visual imagery. If you open your eyes and see, you will see that there is a stark break in your thought process. From whatever you're doing, your attention is suddenly moved. And this idea, this concept was what was utilized by the researchers in order to facilitate procedure of repairing sad mood and shifting focus from the negative stimuli to a neutral or more positive stance. Participants were then asked to recall a neutral or positive memory and were trained to recall it in more specific detail and vividity. Once this was done, they were asked to register and sense into the experience of the positive memory and elongate it for at least 30 seconds to a minute. Now, in the training phase, some cues were created. For example, the market, guest, my mother, like that. And for each cue, the participants had to pick out a positive memory and a negative or sad memory. First, the recall of sad memory was completed. After that, positive memory enhancement training was done, and the participants were asked to stay with the sustained positive feeling at the end of the experiment. When they analyzed the results of this experiment, they found positive correlations and indications that this could be a helpful tool in working with depressed mood. For our hospital setting in Raipur, we had modified the intervention to include an exclusion criteria. We had added tools to measure severity of depression. Although depression severity doesn't seem to directly impede recall of positive or negative memories, there is in a clinical setup a significance of the symptom severity. We also excluded participants who had severe suicidal ideation for the study. We looked at PDI-2, perseverative thinking questionnaire, emotion regulation questionnaire, balance ratings of the researchers, ratings of subjective happiness, and specificity of memory by the researchers and the participants, and coded the data and analyzed it. Interestingly,
Last one.
oh, I will hurry up. I'm so sorry if it's taking a lot of time. Yeah. So, well, it was interesting to note that all depressed people had difficulty recalling positive memories initially. They complained that thinking of positive events was actually kind of brutal because it reminded them of their loss and sadness. However, by the end of the experiment and across the prolonged sessions, they were more able to identify and differentiate between neutral and negative life events throughout the day, and also speak in more detail about those neutral and positive life events compared to only the negative ones. This stands out not because of its simplicity, but also because it is very affordable, trainable, and easily accessible. So that's my minute. Thank you so much for listening to me very patiently.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akanti. If you have any comments or questions, we can take one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, may we have Sujit Pradhan?
हम आपका फोन है हम देख नहीं सकते हैं
Anurag Upadhyay. Sujit, please. You may start.
जिसको आपका फोन वो हम समझे ठीक है हम समझे आपके पास पहुंच गए
Honorable Chair and learned audience, myself Dr. Sujit Prasad here to present on the topic adaptations of pictures from International Affective Picture System, that is, it is called IAPS. Why to move on to it? When you think of the human behavior, it can be construed in the terms of thinking and feeling being, which in turn finds results in some form of performance. So affective and cognitive processes are simultaneous, interactive and continuous. Starting from here, I would like to emphasize on how emotions can be studied and how their influences can be studied in some laboratory setting, and how some standard set of pictures is required when we want to establish it within the laboratories or across the laboratories. So this is all about, we are all aware that study of feeling, thinking and doing component is all about the human behavior. And appraisal, when we were talking about the emotional cognition by cognitive appraisal theories, we can argue that appraisal involves physiological, expressive and behavioral changes which are actually expressed when we are experiencing some kind of emotion or when we are expressing some kind of emotion. Moving to it, if for emotions, we have two distinct families of theories. One is discrete theory of emotions, another is dimensional theory of emotions. Discrete theory of emotions talks about the 6 basic emotions, that is happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise. And when we are talking about the dimensional model of emotion, it is actually talking about the n-dimensional space, which is here. Here. The n-dimensional space, it was given by Brinken. We can see here that 3 distinct components have been identified, that is arousal, valence, and dominance. Valence is actually depicting positive or negative valence associated with the pictures. Arousal refers to the combination of physical activity and mental alertness, and dominance is all about the locus of control, that is whether one is able to control the situation or the person itself is getting controlled by the situation. Going backwards, I would say that affective stimuli database, if we talk about, there are 4 distinct categories which have been developed at Center for Study of Emotional and Attention at University of Florida. And this study has been going on from 1980, so good 40 years. The latest version has come in 2008. So there are 4 different sets of stimuli, affective stimuli. International Affective Picture System, it is also pronounced as IAP, International Affective Digital Sound System, affective nouns for English words, and affective nouns for English text, that is NAT. When I just focus specifically on International Affective Picture System. The latest version of it contains 1194 pictures, which have been rated on the specifications of valence, arousal, and dominance, and that too for separate set for general population, for male, for female, and for children. These normatively rated affective stimuli allow better experimental control in the selection of emotional stimuli. Whenever we are talking about some laboratory setup, we are actually talking about the premise of the control within an experimental setting, within the laboratory setting. If we do not have these pictures or these database, we are not able to control. That is why emotional attention interaction studies have not been so prominent before 2000. If we go through the literature review, that is why the word 5 was there actually. There are several reasons for using pictures as affective stimuli, because we can also go through videos, but there is certain advantages. Pictures have the clear ability to evoke emotions. It is relatively easy to edit, catalog, and distribute. Pictures are the static stimuli, because if videos are there, we may be worried or concerned about some eye movements or saccades, or whether one is able to follow what particular pause action. Stimuli like films and stories can contain dynamic changes because they are themselves very dynamic in nature. And when we are talking about some physiological markers, these can offer us better perspective. Again, this I have discussed. IAPS is a large set of photographs that depict diverse semantic content, including natural similes, food, animals, violence, objects of everyday use, accidents, pollution, erotic pictures, and so forth. So considering the cultural sensitivities as well, one can use their own set of pictures from these 1200 pictures, around about 1200 pictures. And the pictures may be selected such that the mean scores of valence, arousal, and dominance offer unique permutations and combinations. For example, if I move forward, you can see here, okay, this is self-assessment mannequin. Actually, this is a 9-point rating scale. It appears that it is a 5-point rating scale. For valence, you can see happy to sad. For arousal, you can see excited to calm. And for dominance, you can see able to control than being controlled. The size of the picture is actually depicting. So this is actually a 9-point rating scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4 because boxes are 4 boxes and 5 mannequins. So 9-point rating scale, one of the most robust scale. SAM reflects the subjective feelings of control in the situation, whereas semantic differential scale by Osgood and Tannenbaum, this also some correlation has been found out. And so it has been resolved that techniques on both the scales prove that valence and arousal account for the most variance, and that SAM is able to quickly evaluate these dimensions. These are the prototype pictures. We cannot make public all the pictures, so these are the prototype pictures as mentioned in the manual, which can be made for public appearance. That is for low arousal, neutral arousal, and high arousal, high and negative arousal actually. This was the actual procedure which has been followed. I am just discussing here 2 findings of the 2 studies which I myself have performed. Okay, this is the selection of pictures. We have the option here to control the balance level against the varying arousal level, and this is the scatter plot of it. So we are able to find out the exact effect of the exact manipulation of the arousal level against a controlled balance level. And this is the finding action. You can see here what has happened in this experiment, that some manipulation check has been performed. That 5 minutes from point 1 to point 2, pre and post ratings on PANAS before giving the pictures. Some 5-minute picture presentation was given, pre and post ratings was given, and then after performance of vigilance task, one last positive and negative effect was computed through PANAS. What we can find out here, you see this graph is much better. We can go through the trend line actually. That positive effect is actually on the decline and negative effect is on the high, on the increasing side, we can see. But we can also observe here that positive effect had decreased significantly against very steadily rising negative effect. That is, which is also showing the containing nature of attention itself, how concentrating it is actually, so that it is absorbing all the emotional content as well. And this was the interaction. And these were the pictures. Every picture is given a 4-digit code. These are the pictures used in this experiment. If we move forward, again, arousal level is controlled here now. We are able to control the arousal level and valence level can be varied. Same story is here. And the result is again here. We can find out. So here positive effect is again steadily decreasing, and negative effect is actually increasing very steadily. And these are the pictures which happen. If we come to the conclusion part, we can say that during the last decades, the interest in studying human emotional behavior has been constantly increasing. To analyze the emotional behavior in scientific studies, it is necessary to have a method to elicit and induce different emotions. Therefore, numerous methods have been developed, and using these pictures, videos are some variables. These methods can be assigned to different classes ranging from self-imagination to presentation methods of film, music, or whatsoever one is interested in actually. Depending on design of the study, within or between design can be studied. A standardized material for emotional induction can help to solve this problem and provides many advantages, and it is easy to exactly replicate through experiments, because if I am using n number of pictures and the same set of n number of pictures is being used by some different person in another lab, ecological validity can be maintained, which has been actually a concern otherwise. And of course it allows a better experimental control. If we talk about the view that changing one's emotional state leads to switching between different ways of thinking and construal, and when it comes to respond between developing effectively evocative learning content and environments. That is, it is all about affective computing. It is all about related to affective computing, which is actually very much popular today. Different stimuli, I have told that a separate set for children has been also developed. So it may be applied specifically to children, and it can contain the Bloom's taxonomy. It can also take into account the Bloom's taxonomy, which is talking about affective cognitive character of the presentations. And relatively, I have concluded saying that relatively broader or specific Indian adaptations of affective stimuli should be developed, because there has been only one attempt to date in 2013 by Srinivasan and Lohani at CBCS. They have used the adaptation of some 80 pictures, and it is a wide range of 1200 pictures. So I myself is working on it. So these two findings are just a prerequisite for it. I am moving on to next set to just validate and adapt for the Indian setting. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Interesting presentation. Any comments, any questions, observations?
Very good paper.
Thank you, sir.
What are the possible situations in which we can actually use this tool?
Whenever we are using some laboratory studies involving emotion elicitation or emotional induction, particularly when we are using laboratory setup, we should have all these things, because they have got controlled ranges of valence, arousal and dominance. So for particularly this is good for laboratory setting, and for social experiments as well this can be utilized. Some social field experiments this can be also utilized.
स्टेशन जहाँ पे कल था वही है।
Very good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Dr. Anurag Upadhyay. I'm from UP College, Varanasi. It is my great pleasure to welcome one and all present here to my presentation on role of information communication technology in women empowerment in India. This is a brief overview of my presentation. First of all, I will discuss women empowerment, then why should it be. After that, components of women empowerment, then type of women empowerment, way to empower women, type of women empowerment, effort made by government, and lastly, first of all, actually the word women empowerment is combination of two words. This is women and empowerment, where empowerment refers as social action process that promote participation of people, organization and communities in gaining control over their lives in their community. According to the World Bank, empowerment is the process of enhancing individual or groups' capacity to make decisions and to turn those decisions into desired action and outcome. Women empowerment can be defined to promoting women's sense of self-worth, their ability to determine their own choice, and their right to influence social change for themselves and others. Based on the assumption that women differ from men in their social position and that those differences consist of asymmetric, unequal power relations between the gender, so women empowerment refers to the process of increasing women's access to control over the strategic life choice that affect them and access to the opportunities that allow them fully to realize their capacities. Why should it be means? What is the need of the women empowerment? Because of exploitation, dowry, discrimination, and harassment. History has witnessed that out of all disadvantaged groups in the world, women have suffered the most, leaving their condition vulnerable. On the worldwide scale, their pain cannot be explained in the terms of culture, race, geography, and religion. It is regrettable that women are frequently the target of abuse, molestation, violence, rape, poverty, hunger, and acid attacks in today's technological advanced society. So, because of that, as per the data released by NCRB, crime against women rose by 15.3% in 2021 from the previous year, with 428,278 cases registered last year, following 371,503 cases in 2020. The NCRB report also shows that the rate of crime against women increased from 56.50% in 2020 to 64.50% in 2021. Nearby, 31,000 complaints of crime committed against women were received by the National Commission for the Women in 2022, the highest since 2014. Need of women empowerment. The main problem faced by the women is gender discrimination, women education, female infanticide, dowry, child marriage, freedom of movement, access to employment, exposure to media, domestic violence. Gender discrimination is discrimination on the basis of a gender, causing one gender to be racially privileged over another, and this is illegal. Why this is illegal? Because constitutionally both genders have equal right in India. Next is women education. It is a very crucial factor in empowerment of women because the literacy rate of women is very low as compared to men. The total literacy rate is 77.70, with with literate male at 84.70 and literate female at 70.30. According to NFHSS, National Family Health Survey and NSO, National Statistical Office data. Female infanticide. Intentional killing of baby girls due to the preference for male baby and from the low value associated with the birth of female. Next is dowry. Dowry is a very common problem in our society. In a few words, we can say that this is a token bidding for the marriage. And the child marriage, what is child marriage? Child marriage is informal union between a child under the age of 18 and with an adult. This problem leads to deprivation of several mental strength in women. That is, in cognitive aspect like decision making strength, in behavioral aspect like freedom of movement and access the private education or employment, stable emotional strength and strong emotional intelligence. And it is also affected by exposure to media. Next is component of women empowerment. Right to have access to opportunities and resources, power to control their own lives both within and outside the home. Access to education and employment to determine the choices. Ability to sense of self-worth, seeking orientation for social change to create her own social status and make decision on her or perception and cognition. Ways to empower women. Change in women's mobility and social interaction, changes in social interaction labor patterns, changes in women's access to and control over resources, changes in women's control over decision making, providing education, self-employment and self-help groups, providing minimum needs like nutrition, health, sanitation, housing. Other than this, society should change the mentality towards the word woman. Types of women empowerment. Total 6 factors: social empowerment, educational empowerment, psychological empowerment, economic empowerment, political empowerment and technological empowerment. Social empowerment. It is a degree to which the personal capabilities and the ability of female to act are enhanced by social relation. Educational empowerment, an interactive process in which the women acquire relative control of the learning process based on the sense of belonging, independence and generosity toward the other. It increases our intelligence, skill and knowledge and bring positive changes to our life. Psychological empowerment. It is a woman's cognitive state characterized by a sense of perceived control, competence and goal internalization. Technological empowerment. A manner of accomplishing a task, especially using technical process methods or knowledge of new technologies or information storage. Political empowerment. It refers to the process of transferring various elements of power to women who do not have. Okay. These are the several efforts which is done by our government. These are listing as Deen Dayal Upadhyay Antyodaya Yojana, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana, Dhanlakshmi scheme and all that. So what is the role of ICT? ICT is regarded as a powerful agent for a variety of forms of environment. ICTs are effective development enhancers for the progress of women's development process and for giving women the tools they need to become self-reliant and overcome injustice. ICT makes sure everyone is here, build a women's network, offer support, recognize gender bias, and this is the way that ICT contributes to women's empowerment. And last conclusion is, from the above analysis, it is clearly visible that when the contribution of women in the country increases, then the development of the country is ensured. The study presented above makes it quite evident that a nation's progress is guaranteed as long as women continue and contribute to society. Today, it is imperative that science and technology to be used to empower women in order to bring about this growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anurag. Any questions, comments, or observations? Yes, please.
Dr. Anurag, I have a query about the women empowerment. Is there any milestone की मतलब वहाँ तक अगर empowerment कर दी जाए तो वो important समझा जाएगा, क्योंकि एक radical feminism का एक concept है word without meat is the last resort of women empowerment. Is that okay or not?
Actually, डेवलपमेंट की कोई लिमिट होती नहीं, तो इसलिए हम किसी एक चीज को कोई फुल स्टॉप से नहीं कर सकते. इट इज अ कंटीन्यूअस प्रोसेस, इसमें सस्टेनेंस चाहिए. ठीक है, मतलब कहने का मतलब ये है कि अगर हमें वुमेन को एम्पावर करना होगा तो हमें एक शुरुआत करनी है, उस शुरुआत को फिर उत्तरोत्तर आगे तक बढ़ाना है. हम उस पे एक थ्रेशोल्ड पॉइंट जरूर डिसाइड कर सकते हैं, पर एक्सट्रीम पॉइंट नहीं डिसाइड कर सकते. अभी तो हम इक्वल ही नहीं, अभी तो हमें इक्वल तक जाना है, इक्वल के बाद एक्सीलेंस तक जाना है. सो शुरुआत जरूरी है.
Very good answer.
Now, may I call Dr. Gaurav Kumar Rai for presentation. Okay, there is a request from a few participants that they want to leave. So we have the memento given to them and then we continue. So take just few minutes. So, oh wait, please, let me do it. Can we have Dr. Aparna Samudra first, because she was in the symposium, and then we have the Now we have Dr. Aditi.
He is the official photographer. Taken it twice. One official, one official.
Dr. Tharun.
I'll be there.
So we okay, really appreciate that gesture. Okay, so we'll have the presentations continuing now. Dr. Gaurav Kumar Rai.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I am Dr. Gaurav Kumar Rai. I am a scientific officer in Forensic Science Lab, Lucknow. And presently working over there. My research work is based on Banaras Hindu University South Campus data.
My topic is color of lights and human performance. First of all, I describe how to come idea in this, my mind. So there are a naturopathy department. They are working on the chromotherapy. It's basically working on not on only on your eyes. If you close your eyes, then light, color of light also affects your performance and some neurobiological activities. So that I think that can be used in business performance and some human performances to reduce their activities or arouse their activities. So I use this chromotherapy. I have used only two colors, that is blue and yellow. I am choosing only a business performance because of it's a very hard to maintain your performance across the time period. So I use business task, and there are three properties in business task: infrequent signals, repeated digits of stimulus, and the task was for prolonged time period. And it has been determined by the three characteristics. First one is task characteristics, individual, that personality, mood, and the third one is environmental characteristics. I've used environmental characteristics as a color of light. So my objective is to examine the effects of blue and yellow lights on mental workload, physiological response, and business task performance. Business task performance was recorded in terms of hit, false alarms, response time, perceptual sensitivity, and criteria. Here the variable, independent variable is blue and yellow lights condition. These are the within task condition, not between. The same subject where appeared in both task condition because of control of their individual ability like personality, mood, and some other things. And here are the three types of dependent variables: behavioral, mental workload is the perceived performance, and physiological performance. Here is the task characteristics. First appear the fixation that is a plus sign, which appear for 500 milliseconds, then target and non-target for 100 milliseconds, and then participants have 100 milliseconds for response. The task modality was visual black signals on white background. Signal and non-signal ratio is 1/4. Signal probability is 0.20, and 30 animates per minute were used in this study. Here is the sequence and real task. The white background is the only appear against my participants. Participants have pressed to space bar when they detect the bigger square in a small square. Here the two conditions, blue and yellow light, it's appear on. I have used three software. First one is not a freeware. It's a license to Cognitive Science Lab, Banaras Hindu University. And SDK analysis was developed by the same lab. It's a free for us only. And online NASA TLX software is a freeware software you can use. You can download from website. Here is the lab setting. In the center position, you can see that three blue lights appear on that screen. One bulb is also used in the left side position. There are 4 0-watt bulb. Bulb description is also not here. 40 light emitted diode bulb was used in this study. 17 inches color monitor, revolving chair, white wall. All of the laboratory settings are here. Procedure: participants have filled the consent form and biographical questionnaire, then go for the eye test, then instruction and demonstration for 3 minutes. Practice session in blue and light and yellow light conditions for 10 minutes. If participants have 70% or more accuracy, then go for the main session. Before starting main session, we have test the NASA TLX for mental workload, then physiological recording, then main session start for 30 minutes, then post recording was done in this study. 17 participants, that's a within task condition, participated in this study. Their mean age was 24.0 years with a variation of 1.66. Mean weight was 54.47 kg with a variation of 8.8 kg. All participants have normal visual activity. A 2 into 3 within task design were used in this study. Now the results. First, you can see the bulb lighting here. Here is the beneficial condition. You can see that which condition is beneficial in this performance. So in this condition, yellow light condition where high hit rates and also increased blue light condition, you can see that it's a deteriorates across time period. But yellow condition in yellow light condition after 20 minutes, the performance were increased in the from second to third block. And the all interaction, all source of ANOVAs was found significant in this performance. False alarms was higher in yellow light conditions in comparison to blue light conditions, and that was, but that was not significant. So we cannot say that it's a beneficial on blue light condition. Reaction time also increased across time period in blue light condition, but decreased after 20 minutes in yellow light condition. So thus we can say that it's a beneficial in blue light, yellow light condition. Sensitivity decreased across time period in both task conditions. That's why the block was found significant, but not between tasks were found significant. Response criterion was down in yellow light condition. In past I have presented that hit condition was high in yellow light condition, because of that criterion was low. Now the perceived workload. Here the perceived workload was found lower in blue light condition and increase across time period in yellow light condition. Here is the when component of perceived mental workload, perceived performance was higher in yellow light condition. It's a blue light effect, and perceived effort was also stable across pre and post measurement. Temporal demand was lower in yellow light condition, and there are not significant any result, but it's only a symbolic presentation. Here is the hedonic arousal and energetic arousal was high in yellow light condition, where anger, frustration and tense arousal, because of not performing well, I think it's a perceived performance. So they are not perceiving well in blue light condition. Here is the physiological measure. All both blood pressure measure, diastolic and systolic, were decreased across time period. Oxygen saturation also declined across time period, and pulse rate was also declined. That shows that the arousal level going down during business tasks. Body temperature is an interesting result. In yellow light condition, body temperature was down across time period, while increasing in blue light condition, because of they perceive that in blue light condition, blue light is a calm effect, so that if you are not performing, then your temperature will increase across time period. Now conclusion: behavioral performance found better in yellow light condition, perceived well workload found better in blue light condition, physiological responses showed resources decrease across time period. Now the significance of my study is helpful to understand relation between vigilance and color of lights. The real world application of this finding include domain in which continuous monitoring and color of light plays a crucial part of the task. Thank you.
Any questions, queries, observations from the audience? Thank you. Next we have Anil Kumaria.
paper, or you can say a kind of review paper on the topic vigilance performance, and the three important aspects, or you can say factors, which are associated with vigilance performance, that is cognitive demand, workload and stress. So before discussing about the factors which affect vigilance, I would like to give a short, brief introduction of the problem of vigilance. We all know by now, because of previous presentations, that vigilance is a task, or vigilance is related to something where we are supposed to maintain our attention for a prolonged period of time, and specifically the task in which we are engaged is monotonous and repetitive. So that is why it has been found that it results in decrement of performance, and that has been termed as vigilance decrement. And there is a very interesting story behind the origin of this vigilance studies. Initially, this term vigilance was coined by Sir Henry Head in 1923, and after that, during World War II, British Air Force pilots, they were supposed to, they have this technology, they have a technological advancement where on their radar there was a blip sound whenever enemy submarine was in the sea water and it was detected on the radar. So there was a blip sound. But surprisingly, most of the blips were missed by the experienced pilots, and due to that, submarines were, they were not able to struck them, and because of that, the Allied forces, they paid a heavy price because of that. So after end of World War II, the British Navy and Air Force, they both jointly wanted to what happened and why pilots were not able to perform, and they were having so much experience and so highly motivated they were, still they were missing the targets. So what was the cause? So they appointed at that time Norman Mackworth, to find out the underlying cause behind this kind of performance decrement. And Mackworth did a test which is famously known as clock test, in which basically he simply used a clock in which there was a pendulum which made single jumps and occasionally it made double jumps. So simply participants or observers who were basically at that time the pilots who has actually participated in the war, and they have to click whenever a double jump took place. So what happened, that in his experiment he found that over a task of 2 hours, most of the participants, they were not able to maintain their performance, and after initial 20 to 30 minutes there was a decrement in their performance. That is, they missed the targets, and continuously there were false alarms, and there was a decrement in reaction time as well. So based on his findings, Mackworth termed this vigilance decrement phenomenon, and he said that this should be curbed, and from then on, from the past 70 or more than 70 years, vigilance decrement has been a major problem for ergonomists and human factor scientists, and which has been studied extensively. So apart from that, a pioneer in this area, that is Raja Parasuraman, he has and also Demmer and Baum, they have done extensive work in this area, and they have proposed many theories and and they have also proposed taxonomy of vigilance. And according to them, there are two types of parameters, or we can say the factors which affect vigilance have been divided into two parameters. One is based on stimulus parameters and another one is task parameters. In stimulus parameters, the first three are first order factors because they are physical characteristics of the stimulus, that is sensory modality, which is either auditory, visual and tactile. It has been found that sometimes it has been found in the experiment that auditory signals, they are better, the performance is better for auditory signals compared to visual signals. And signal salience is associated directly with the signal and amplitude of the stimulus, and it is obvious that when amplitude and signal will be higher or clearer, the performance will be better and vigilance decrement will be lower. Whereas event rate is like, and we will further discuss event rate, so I am skipping it here. Temporal uncertainty is about the occurrence of that critical signal, when it will occur. So most of the observers, the real problem for them is that they are not aware about when and where, when is spatial uncertainty, that where is spatial uncertainty and when is temporal uncertainty. at which time and at which place, and basically place here is about the screen whichever they are monitoring over the time period. So these two factors are very important which are actually responsible for vigilance decrement. And then task parameters, task complexity. It has been found that as the task complexity increases, vigilance decrement is steeper. Although Yerkes-Dodson law applies here, as if the task is too simple, then sometimes it causes underestimation, and due to that also vigilance decrement has been registered. Then knowledge of result. Knowledge of result has been proved to be beneficial for vigilance performance. Whereas task taxonomy, there are successive tasks and simultaneous tasks. In successive tasks, observers are supposed to hit the critical signal based on their memory. Whereas in simultaneous tasks, they have to just make a simple comparison between the two tasks, which one is the critical signal. So based on that, it has been found that successive tasks, performance on successive tasks has been, vigilance decrement has been steeper in successive tasks compared to simultaneous tasks. Now these three factors which I have earlier spoken of, that is cognitive demand, workload and stress. One of them is cognitive demand. Cognitive demand is mainly, you can say, manipulated in terms of event rate, that is rate of presentation of neutral events in the task or in the whole experiment per minute, in the rate of per minute. And it contains both neutral events as well as critical events or signals, we can say targets. Whereas task type is sometimes cognitive task and sensory tasks both can be used. Although it has been found that sensory tasks are they are more, vigilance decrement is more pronounced when we use sensory tasks compared to cognitive tasks. Event rate has set to be when 24 events, if there is the rate of event is 24 or more per minute, it is considered as high event rate, whereas lower than 24 it has been considered as low event rate. And it has been found that event rate is inversely proportional to vigilance performance. That is, higher the event rate, lower the performance, or we can say higher vigilance decrement. Then the second issue is, that is workload associated with cognitive demand. It has been found that, and since we are going to discuss workload again on the next slide, so I am skipping this. Then there is perceptual sensitivity and response criterion. Perceptual sensitivity is supposed to decrease when we encounter high event rate, and that is according to signal detection theory. When perceptual sensitivity lowers in higher event rate, then performance decreases. That is, vigilance decrement is pronounced. And response criterion increases in case of low event rate, and that is the reason of vigilance decrement when there is low event rate. So we have to understand this, that in case of low event rate, there is vigilance decrement, but not as pronounced as in case of high event rate. But perceptual sensitivity accounts for decrement in high event rate condition, whereas response criterion accounts for vigilance decrement in low event rate condition. Then there is resource model proposed by Parasuraman and colleagues. According to this model, the observers, they have, over the task, when they are performing on the task, their attentional resources, they are drained out. And with the time, these resources are not replenished as per the requirement, and that leads to, you can say, vigilance decrement according to resource model. Then we have this factor, that is workload of vigilance. If you will ever see a vigilance task, and it has been many times people have advocated in last one. In that case, I will just skip to my conclusion. And basically, I actually wanted to just make this whole point, look very feasible, and that is why I was creating all that kind of background. So, the need for vigilance tasks to be taken seriously, because the extent of loss which has happened over time in the past, and there are many incidents regarding that which we can take into example. And for that, a study that was performed by Yadav Singh and Tiwari in 2016, and I was part of that study. So according to that study, there is a need to construct moderately demanding work conditions to extract optimal performance. And why that? It is just proportionate to Yerkes-Dodson law, where the optimum performance is extracted, or you can say achieved, not when the condition is extreme, either low or either very high, but it is somewhere between these two, dimensions, and it may be called as optimum. We have to just go for that. We have to search for that. We have to, you can look for that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Yadav, you have put in a very nice paper, but you have resorted to SR formula, Sturmer's forms. Oh, you have missed. Because some development were missed. You have talked about Schwartz and Green, you have talked about signal detection theory. It was developed by Schwartz and Green. And in Schwartz and Green, they have clearly mentioned that some demographic variables like gender, age.
Sir, just a minute, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. Actually, because of the lack of time, the O you are talking about, I have to miss it because of the time restraint. Otherwise, that would have been covered in my presentation.
So, I didn't find that, so I have to make this
I apologize for that.
But Schwartz and Green have clearly mentioned, and they attribute to SOR theory rather than SR theory. You have discussed your entire paper within the framework of SR theory. This is my observation. Otherwise, your paper is very good.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any more comments? Questions? Okay, thank you. Next, we have Krishna Kumar. Oh, what is presentation? Vikas Kumar.
Professors and dear delegates. Myself, Dr. Vikas Kumar. Now I am going to present emotional maturity and an intermediate assessment of Sarkar Local Chamber. We all are suffering from psychological difficulties. We believe that anxiety, tension, frustration, and emotional upset. Emotional maturity is a very important in our life. It helps to the better survival of human life. Emotional maturity defines how capable a person is to respond to situation, control her emotion, and behave in sophisticated manner when dealing with others. According to Walter Smith, emotional maturity is a process in which the personality is both intrapersonally and intrapersonally. Both also define this term. Emotional maturity is ability to bear tension. Let us mention some characteristics of emotional person in following points. Is capable of responding in regulation or degree of emotional responses. Is also able to give the responses. I can with the impulsiveness of young child, having obsessed with the speed of showing unrestrained self-pity, he tried to escape for him. Hypothesis of the study. The level of emotional maturity is higher in male intermediate students than female intermediate students. And the second hypothesis is there is no significant difference between male students having high level of emotional maturity than Muslim male students. the study. To find out that the impact of gender on the emotional maturity of the students. Second objective is to find out that the impact of religion on emotional maturity of the student. Methodology of sectional study was carried out after taking permission of college and convenient sampling procedure was followed to select the participants of the study. The participation in the study was voluntary and verbal consent from the participant were taken before the study. Sample, a total of 120 intermediate students participated of Sakarapura paper Bihar by using convenient and purposive sampling technique. The sample is divided into two gender group, that is male and female. Each group represented by 60 students. The male and female have been further subdivided into two religious groups, that is Hindu and Muslim. Each group represented by 20 students. Thus, there are four subgroups, that is Hindu male student, male Muslim student, female Hindu student, female Muslim student. Each group represented by 30 students. So this is the inclusion criteria: age between 15 to 20 years, minimum qualification, education qualification was intermediate, Hindu and Muslim student by religion. Exclusion criteria: age below 15 years and above 20 years excluded. Education qualification below between intermediate and above the post-graduate excluded. Sikh and Christian by religion was excluded. Personal data questionnaire for collecting the details of information regarding participants, age, sex, religion, etc. and emotional maturity scale, which was highly developed by the restricting account this is the table. The finding of the study has been tabulated in table 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively. Table 1, comparison between male and female intermediate student of emotional maturity score. Table 1 shows the emotional maturity of male and female intermediate student. The NMST score of male intermediate student are 60, 125 and the NMST score of female intermediate student are 60, 106.1, 70.5 respectively. The difference between both mean a score are not significantly at 0.5 level. This is the table 2, comparison between Hindu and Muslim intermediate student on emotional maturity scale. So the emotional maturity of the Hindu and Muslim intermediate student by NMST score of Hindu intermediate student are 60. 111.13, 26.7, and NMST score of Muslim intermediate student are 60, 111.68, 30.29 respectively. The difference between both means a score find no significant difference. Table number 3 shows the emotional maturity of Hindu male and Muslim male intermediate students. The NM and SDS score of Hindu male student are 30, 109.83, 19.57, and NMST of Muslim male student are 30, 121.23, and 2.3 respectively. The difference between both score are found no significant at any level. Table 4 shows the emotional maturity of Hindu, Muslim, and Muslim female intermediate students. The NMST score of Hindu female student are 30, 105.86, 18.70, and NMST score of Muslim female intermediate student are 30, 106.16, 60.5 respectively. The difference between both means score are not significant at any level. So finding a male intermediate student at high level of emotional maturity than female intermediate student, both Hindu and Muslim intermediate student have similar level of emotional maturity. Both Hindu male and Muslim male student have similar level of emotional maturity. Both Hindu female and Muslim female student have similar level of emotional maturity. Conclusion. From the finding for our studies were that a significant number of male intermediate students having high level of emotional maturity than female intermediate students, and no any significant difference between Hindu and Muslim intermediate students, Hindu male and Muslim male intermediate students, and Hindu female and Muslim female intermediate students from a scale of emotional maturity. Keeping in view the above finding, there is a need to cultivate the emotional maturity among the students for their growth of individual development and betterment of future. So this is the thanks for
this should be equal sanction to all. Use the term method instead of methodology. Because technically methodology means science of method. Methodology is science of method. In research method could be methodology. But when you present a paper, it should be method. And if you go through all standard journals, they write method, not methodology. Unfortunately, I also wrote my thesis methodology in 1967. And one of my examiners, you know, that at the time one was foreign examiner. Hubert Bonner was my foreign examiner, and he gave me this tip: you should have used the term method instead of methodology, because methodology is science of method. You are not writing science of method, you are writing a method. So whenever I come across people, I try to correct them. Better use method in place of method. Otherwise, the paper is
methodology is a very comprehensive term. It can include anything. But they have to stand on your method here.
You have to write your method. What you have said is what you have done. You do. You have to write that. Why you do? You have not to discuss science of method. Methodology, this is for information of all youngsters.
Yes, so we will remember you.
Yes, we have one more comment.
Ma'am, it's an observation. When we are using a difference between Hindu and Muslim and male and female, do you know the constitution? If you are not in aim कि हम discrimination अगर दिखा रहे हैं तो हमारा objective क्या हो सकता है, इसके लिए कैसे intervention दे सकते हैं? केवल discriminate करना आपके constitution के विरुद्ध भी है। तो इसका आपको पहले ही आपको ऑब्जेक्टिव बताना होगा कि यदि हम डिस्क्रिमिनेट कर रहे हैं तो उसका पॉलिसी मेकिंग या और कहीं पे इम्प्लीकेशन होना चाहिए। केवल हमें डिस्क्रिमिनेट करके नहीं छोड़ना है। अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, अपना जो संविधान है वो हमको इसकी अनुमति भी नहीं देता है। तो इट मस्ट बी, आई थिंक देयर आर सेवरल पेपर्स टू डिस्क्रिमिनेट बिटवीन मेल एंड फीमेल, बट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ओनली apply on their papers but not application. So it must be improved on your research and some other research.
That discuss the finding, tell us why you see the difference. I think that is where the crux lies, where you are presenting, not just stopping with the findings, but going ahead and explaining how it appeared and what are the possible causes. And as he said, the implications. These are very important aspects of any presentation. And now, my concluding remarks. We planned for 2 more presenters who are unable to make the presentation. And so we are finishing the session earlier than what we originally planned. We had 7 papers from very different backgrounds. It was almost like taking a tour at BHU at the computer psychology lab. So it gave us a very good idea of the kind of work that they're doing, and a very interesting set of papers. Cost-benefit study of Flickr View using visual vigilance task performance, and then we had another on color of lights and human performances. Very insightful. And vigilance performance, which was a theoretical paper. Vigilance performance and implication of cognitive demand, workload, and stress as factors of vigilance performance. And then we had a very interesting paper on a positive psychological approach to depression. It was very interesting. We only wish we had given that speaker a little more time. And then we had another theoretical paper, conceptual paper on use of ICT for women empowerment. And then in the last we had emotional maturity among students as an empirical paper. We, though didn't have a lot of discussions, we had a very rapt participants. I was looking at everybody totally focused on the presentation. So I thank all the presenters for making this afternoon very interesting and informative. Thank you so much. Now, we
हाँ, हम लोग आपके